to be able to just make a choice on your own and just be able to speak for yourself.
This one's wife. I don't bother with them anymore. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. It is a characteristic of the narcissist that people are used. I make it very clear that we're not really friends with you, that we don't actually love you, that we don't really like you. Our attitude towards you is shaped by your usefulness to us. How easy can you be controlled? How good is your fuel that you're going to provide to us? How much fuel can you provide to us? Do you have character traits that we can commandeer from you? And what are the residual benefits that you bring to the party? That's what actually matters. Because when it comes to a narcissist interaction with other people, it's all about how you cater to the prime aims. Thus, the narcissism will cause the narcissist to appear as if they like you in order to draw you in, so the narcissist can make use of those prime aims from you. The narcissist believes that they love you, generated by the narcissism, so that they behave in a particular way to ensnare you, again to access those prime aims. It also means that because you are there to be used, we have no sense of long-term commitment or obligation towards you. Yes, of course, there are instances where a narcissist will have been in a relationship with somebody for decades, but that is because they continue to cater to the prime aims, and a disengagement trigger has not occurred, therefore they have remained with that individual. But it does not mean that it is a happy marriage or union, far from it. The narcissist, once we have ensnared you from day one, you belong to us until the day that we die. That doesn't mean that we will necessarily interact with you on a daily basis. Indeed, there could be long periods of time where you have nothing to do with us because we have placed you on the shelf and we're occupied elsewhere. This is the dynamic that secondary sources experience. So colleagues, family, friends, certain intimate partners are taken off the shelf and interacted with. So we hoover you and we spend an evening with you down the pub. Or we take you to a motel and knock your hip out. We go for a walk with you on the beach. We have a business meeting with you. And then thereafter, we put you back on the shelf. We might take you off the shelf again an hour later, a month later, a year later. It all depends upon whether there is a hoover trigger, whether the hoover can be executed, and whether we deem that it is appropriate to spend time with you, either on the telephone or messaging you or physically proximate to you, or whether we need not do that. Accordingly, it's often the case that you will find yourself utilized by a narcissist a lot. Perhaps they're spending lots of time with you as a friend, and then it suddenly stops, and you wonder, what have I done? In actual fact, you probably haven't done anything, and you've been put back on the shelf white, and the narcissist is just utilizing other non-intimate secondary sources. And because the narcissist has no emotional empathy for you, and has no sense of accountability, and operates with a sense of entitlement, the narcissist doesn't see anything wrong in no longer engaging with you. From your perspective, you think, hang on a second, we've been hanging out as friends several times a week for the last 3 months, and now I haven't heard anything. That's not right, it's not fair, it's not proper. And indeed, from your perspective, it isn't, because you expect consistency of behaviour. Whereas from the narcissist's perspective, they don't see anything wrong with this behaviour because there's no sense of obligation to keep utilising you. There's no sense of commitment that's involved. You're like a toy that can be played with and then put to one side and not played with for some time again. We are allowed to do that because you belong to us. You are an object that is to be utilised by us. And this one's wife is no different. She treats people to the shelf dynamic, picking them up, using them, putting them to one side, picking them up again, utilising them, putting them to one side, and in some instances, no longer bothering with them again. This one's wife disengages from more secondary sources than most narcissists because, as I've explained previously, she moves through different strata. Many narcissists occupy the same stratum, So, for instance, they move in the same familial circles, they move within the same circles with regard to their job, socially, with neighbours. And whilst there will be shelving dynamics in all of those circles, and there may be individuals that are shipped in and shipped out, the level of changes doesn't happen that often. They interact with the same groups of people on and off, on and off, on and off. But with certain narcissists, they essentially move onwards and upwards, certainly in their mind. They move on to better things. And because the narcissist has no emotional empathy and no sense of accountability, the fact that you were a good friend between these periods of time counts for nothing. The narcissist has found a new group of friends that have got better character traits, more residual benefits than you, and therefore you are no longer needed. Therefore, you're left on the shelf. In some instances, you might even be disengaged from, particularly where you protest at your treatment, which of course threatens the narcissist's sense of control. And this one's wife has engaged in this behaviour, as she's done it with her father and her two half-siblings. She doesn't need them, and they're problematic, therefore they were left on the shelf and disengaged from. She's done it with former school friends. She no longer needs them, therefore she doesn't bother with them. She has done it in relation to former colleagues, and this has popped up again in relation to Suits. This one's wife makes a big deal about the fact that she was in Suits. Indeed, you might think that her name was This One's Wife Suits, so often as the name mentioned by reference to her own. Now, of course, once people have stopped working together, it may well be the case that they see one another less often. But not always. Some people have made firm friendships at a workplace, and just because they move and go elsewhere, that doesn't mean that friendship ends. They might see a little bit less of one another because they're not in the same building anymore, but they still keep in touch and do so on a regular basis. But this one's wife repeatedly trots out that she was involved in Suits, but has done nothing to stay in touch with the cast. These individuals were deemed suitably important enough to come to her wedding, and yet now she can't be bothered to do anything with them. They weren't all that important, were they? And once again, the way that she has behaved towards them is demonstrative of how she actually regards them. And the fact that they were invited to her wedding didn't mean anything. They were just there as dressing to make her look good. This has come about because Suits stars Patrick J. Adams and Gabrielle Macht, as reported in the Daily Mail by Jessica Green, have confirmed they've had no communication with their former co-star, the Duchess of Sussex, following the legal drama streaming success. Speaking to The Hollywood Reporter on the set of T-Mobile's Super Bowl commercial, in which the duo feature, the pair were asked, "Have you spoken to this one's wife recently?" "I have not communicated with her other than seeing her big support for the resurgence, and that has been really nice," American actor Gabriel, who played Harvey Specter in the series, said, exhibiting some diplomacy there also. Patrick, who Suits character Michael Ross was in a relationship with this one's wife's Rachel Zane, added, "Zero. No communication." The actor then jokingly pretended he was getting a call saying, "Oh, hold on, there she is. Oh, got to go." At the Golden Globes in January, Patrick and Gabriel presented the Best TV Drama Award before they were joined by fellow stars Gina Torres and Sarah Rafferty. Gina, who played lawyer Jessica Pierce in the US legal drama, revealed at the LA ceremony that the ex-castmates simply don't have this one's wife's number when asked if anyone had reached out to the former actress. Thus, it's demonstrated once again how this one's wife leaves people behind, and demonstrates to you another aspect of the dynamic of the narcissist. Her former colleagues don't matter to her. She doesn't regard them as important enough to deal with. Her narcissism suggests they can be controlled by having nothing to do with them. You don't need fuel from them. There are character traits from them which you can still utilize without having anything to do with them. And the only residual benefit you need from them is to keep talking about Suits, but you don't actually have to go to the effort of maintaining a relationship with them. Therefore, she does not. She doesn't care about them. She doesn't like them. She's not interested in them. The fact that she has nothing to do with them and that there's been no communication since is demonstrative of this, and once again demonstrates her narcissism in action. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.